because you just joined the channel at a later time, I wanted to make you guys aware of what this game is, so that when the Conscast episode goes live, you will be aware of how the game works, the game that we're going to be talking about in that particular podcast. So, what are the pillars of Enshrouded? And those pillars, to me, are exploration, combat, crafting, and building. Now, Enshrouded is built on voxel technology, which I understand not a lot of people are going to understand, but one of the easiest ways to explain what voxel technology is Minecraft. If you've ever played Minecraft, if you've seen somebody play Minecraft, you will be aware of how it works. You punch things, things break down, they give you materials, and then you can use those materials to build other things. And you can do this all throughout the world. Now, one of the main differences between the world of Enshrouded and the world of Minecraft is that Minecraft is procedurally generated, whereas Enshrouded is not. The world of Enshrouded is static, it is developed. I mean, I don't know necessarily if it was hand development. I assume that they used some procedural technology to generate the map, but then they kind of like sculpted by hand. That would be my assumption. That was actually one of the things that I was supposed to ask them, but I got so lost in conversation in the podcast that I've neglected to ask them that. But anyway, the point of the matter is the world in Enshrouded is static, which allows them to do much more handcrafted experience, direct players to different points of interest and all of that stuff, as opposed to just generating everything so that it's different every time. This also allows them to really customize the different biomes that they're going to be putting into the game, but fundamentally, the whole point of voxel technology is that you get to change the world however you see fit. To give you guys an idea, for instance, this game has a glider. Very much kind of like, you could almost think like Zelda, except this glider goes really fast, just almost like a wingsuit, right? So your character glides super fast. And it's really cool for exploration. Not only has a glider, but it also has a grappling hook. But anyways, the glider is the center point of what I wanted to talk about now. Because the game has a glider, one of the things that I wanted to do when deciding where I was going to build my base, because this game allows me to build the base, as pretty much most survival games do, I was like, oh, I want to build a base on top of a mountain, a really tall mountain, because that is going to open up me being able to fly to different locations across the map. So I looked for the centermost mountain in the game. That was also one of the biggest mountains in the game, which is actually called Pillars of Creation. And then I grabbed one of the crafting tools, the pickaxe, and I went to the bottom of that mountain because I couldn't find a way to scale it organically. And I went to the bottom of the mountain and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna dig straight up. And I just started hacking away at the mountain and slowly making my climb through the insides of the mountain to basically get to the top. That is one of the things that you can do in a voxel-like world. You can change the way that the world looks. Now, the world does regenerate over time, but you can still, like, get all the way up the mountain and then build a base there, and that's kind of like what I did, which is really cool. That is one of the advantages of voxel world. So as you are watching this gameplay in the background, just keep that in mind. Anything that you see on screen can be destroyed. You can throw grenades and you can change the lay of the land. Say, for instance, if there's a little hill that you want to climb, it's like just a little bit taller than you would be able to usually get through with your jumping. You can just mine it with a pickaxe, make it smaller, or you can throw a grenade on it and it'll explode and make a hole so that you can kind of like jump in there and then throw more grenades, make more holes, and keep jumping and keep basically doing whatever you want. You can also just like build bridges if you want to. You can build a base pretty much anywhere and you can teleport anywhere. And, you know, there's just a certain level of freedom that you don't get in a lot of video games that do not use voxel technology. Now, beyond using voxel technology, one of the things that also surprised me was the action combat, because the game is played in third person, which is usually the perspective that I tend to prefer whenever it comes to experiencing games. I prefer third person over first person. I just find it to be more interesting, and you can see the way the character looks with armor and all of that stuff. If you watch, most of the games that I play here on the channel are usually third person games, like, you know, Dark Souls, Monster Hunter, and, you know, a bunch of other different titles. They will usually be third-person games, and that is just kind of my preference. So you got action combat in a third-person in a third-person perspective, and you have stuff like you can parry, You can also block if you're playing sword and shield. You also have two-handed weapons if you prefer to use that. There's also ranged combat in the form of bow and arrow. There's different types of arrows like poison arrows, blunt arrows. I don't know if there's fire arrows. There might be. I don't really do ranged combat, but just be aware that's another type of combat you have in there. On top of it, you also have spell casting. So even though the gameplay that you're going to be watching is going to be very much vanilla sword and shield, because I spec my character as a tank, a little bit more about that, just be aware that there's more diversity to the combat than what you're watching. There's still spell casting and all of these other things that you can go ahead and do. But even as simple as the combat is, it already has a certain degree of like addictiveness to it, because you can still parry, you can still dodge roll, you can do jumping attacks, and a bunch of other things, and you also have grenades that you can throw, etc., etc. So combat, simple but satisfying, and it is something that they're still working on. I actually go into greater depth when it comes to that in the Conscast, so feel free to, again, subscribe if you want to watch that later. But yeah, that's the combat system, which personally I enjoy. The traversal, very enjoyable, using the glider as well as breaking the terrain around you, as well as using grappling hooks in certain situations. You can even craft the grapple points in your base if you want to. Like, you can have a base that's all about grappling and doing all of that cool stuff as well. And on top of it, another interesting thing was the skill tree. The game actually has a skill tree that allows you to kind of like specialize yourself in different roles. So I spec my character as a tank. There's actually an aggro mechanic to this game that allows me to get more aggro than my friends. So when I was playing, I would have a friend that was playing bow, another friend that was playing spellcaster, and basically I would tank. I would get the brunt of the enemies to come at me, and they would just shoot them from range, which is really, really cool. Even though with their most recent update, which we'll get into in a little bit, they kind of like broke that in one of the dungeons. Not sure what's going on with that, but yeah. So that's another thing. Combat, skills, almost like an MMO light. You can have up to 16-player multiplayer, but the game is designed in a way that it can be played solo if you choose to do so. But yeah, then you also have an in-depth crafting system. As a matter of fact, of the gear that you guys are watching me play with right now, the helmet I found in chests as I was doing a dungeon. I found this helmet, which is the one that I'm using. The gloves were crafted, the armor piece was crafted, the boots were crafted, the shield was crafted, and then the sword I also found. And the sword I actually upgraded to maximum, because that sword has like this, well, one of the swords, because I'm using two swords throughout this video, but like the one that has the green glow, that sword actually has like a special AoE effect, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so an in-depth crafting system, and the crafting system is not just for the purpose of crafting armor. You also get to craft specific things for your base. And then there's also a building aspect, which with voxels is actually quite powerful. Because you know how in a lot of these survival type games, you have your prefabricated type of things. You can just put down a wall, and then you can get a door, and then you can get all of these things. With voxels, the interesting thing is that you can get right down to individual blocks, and you can alter them after you place them. They use this hybrid type system to do your building, which is actually really cool. I ended up making this neat looking castle tower almost that has 4 little towers up top, and I just really like it, even though it's a super simplistic design. I appreciate what I was able to do with the system, because first I just built like this big cube, and then I had like these little towers that protruded from the outside that were only possible to do because, again, the voxel system allows you to slightly modify and get some more precision into the way that those things are built. And it was pretty cool. The game also has a farming type system, so you can like set up a farm for certain materials. There's gathering involved as well, so you'll be expected to use a pickaxe to gather like different ores and stuff like that for crafting, as well as you will need to get salt in order to dry certain furs to get different materials out of it. The crafting and gathering is actually fairly complex. Sometimes I still have to look some stuff up because you just tend to forget, but there's quite a bit of in-depth systems and quite a bit of ambition to this title. To give you guys an idea, you're looking at this game, right? And you're thinking to yourselves, wow, there's a lot of systems interplaying here, right? This must be a pretty big team. There's 60. Team size is 60. This is one of the questions that I asked during the podcast, and I was like, damn. The level of ambition for only 60 people is very impressive. Now again, do keep in mind, Enshrouded is still very much in early access, but they did just release a major update, which is one of the reasons why they weren't able to get back to me to do the podcast episode, because they were too busy working on this massive update that they just did, which is called Hollow Halls. Now, Hollow Halls essentially added like a brand new dungeon to each of the game's biomes, which I think is like 4 new dungeons, if I'm not mistaken, which started like level 10, 15, 20, and 25 is like the intended levels of these dungeons.
Damn.
I've only done one of the dungeons so far with a friend of mine.
I didn't realize they were that fucking close.
And yeah, the ending of the dungeon was insane. Like tons and tons of mobs coming all over the place, just completely swarming us, which was some of the most challenging stuff that we've done. There's also bosses throughout the world which require a little bit of strategy, pattern recognition, all of that stuff. So there's already quite a bit of stuff in the game, even though, again, it is still early access. But fundamentally, I was very impressed with what they were able to do. And I think it's an interesting title, and it's one to keep an eye on. I'm not saying go out and buy it right now if you're someone that usually doesn't play early access games, but keep an eye on it, particularly if you like
what the
co-op
fuck?
games. I think that this is much better when played in co-op, even though, again, like I said, it can be played pretty much entirely solo, and that is the developer intention. I can kind of like confirm that at this point after sitting down with the creative director. But yeah, hopefully at this point you guys will be a little bit more familiar with what Enshrouded is all about and whether or not it is a game that you are interested in. But like I said, at some point next week, either Monday or Tuesday, you can expect to see a Conscast where I'm going to be talking with the creator of this game, and hopefully you guys will tune in and check it out. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, it can help you out in any way, feel more informed. Leave it a like, subscribe, notification icon, all of that, and let me know if you played Enshrouded, what you think about it, or if you are considering checking out Enshrouded. Let me know in the comments section below. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.
That's called democracy! Requesting air support! Reinforcing! Request approved. Reinforcements on the way. Freedom forever!
Oh my god, now he's coming after me.
Requesting orbital!
Oh my god.
Warning, you are leaving the mission area. Requesting orbital strike! Package fired! Fire in the hole! Not today! pin, southwest, 100 meters.
Found something.
That's way on the other side of the map. I wonder what's in there. I'm gonna mark it on the map just in case we head back over there.
Tagging map, southeast, far. Mission at 20 minutes remaining.
Bug outpost spotted.
Bug tunnel breach. Requesting orbital. Sending in an eagle. Get some! Get some! Calling in reinforcements!
God damn, he got over there so quick. I swear he just spawned.
Orbital inbound! Calling in orbital strike. Orbital strike incoming. Have a taste of democracy! Rare sample acquired.
Package acquired. Activating jump pad.
Marking location. Bag's empty.
Dropping package. Sending in any package acquired. Freedom never sleeps! Dropping package.
God, are you serious?
Requesting air support. Calling in reinforcements.
I know better. I dodged to the left. I don't know why I dodged forward or back. Because I know better than that. I really do. That's sad.
Point me at an enemy.
Oh, he's dead already. Good. Fuck that guy.
I got the terminal. Orbital inbound. Dropping a pin. South. Far. I got the terminal.
Oh my god.
You have served democracy well. Extraction awaits.
Why would you chop like that?
Calling down supplies. Dropping a pin. West. Far. Tagging location. Marking location.
Launching orbital.
That last one.
You may proceed to extraction when ready.
Say hello to democracy.
Rare sample acquired. To the sky. Sending in an eagle. Orbital inbound. Tagging map. West. 300 meters. Requesting tac pack. Found something. Allied destroyer joining squadron, deploying Helldiver to combat zone. Requesting advanced weaponry. Activating jump pad, dropping a pin. West. 200 meters. Extraction is available. Requesting orbital strike. Requesting air support.
Hello there, you little demons. I nearly went too far there. Jules here for WhatCulture.com, back again with another episode of the awesomely named and awfully hosted Choose Your Own Adventure, the weekly medieval themed format where I, the crown jewels of WhatCulture.com, take a list chosen by you. Yes, you, Alex. You're doing well, my friend. That big event that's coming up here, don't worry about it. You have got this. The reason I'm doing this is because somebody on the previous video said that they wanted a very specified call out. And I'm going to start doing them. Alex, hope you're doing well, my friend. Yes, you get to decide what list I dole out to you each and every week, and this week we have none other to thank than Detractor Doom for their suggestion of the worst time limit sections in video games. You know what, my friend? I'm not a detractor of this suggestion because, trust me, there are a lot, and just choosing 8 was very hard to pin down. But you know what? I've got the time, so let's get on with it. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are the 8 worst time limit sections in video games. See, I cut the intro down. I'm saving you time. It's terrible. Right, anyway, moving on. Number 8, Demolition Man from Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Now, although Grand Theft Auto San Andreas' hellish RC mission supply lines is often held up as the toughest timed mission in the series' history, at least that is entirely optional. The same cannot be said for Vice City's migraine-inducingly difficult Demolition Man, which requires players to pilot an RC helicopter to pick up 4 bombs and deliver each to a set point at Avery Carrington's construction site. Now, a 7-minute time limit might actually seem generous, especially, say, if you compare it to your own lovemaking duration. Let's move on from that one there. But it is very difficult because you got to go across different floors, and Avery's construction workers are trying to rip you from the very skies. Add to this the dodgy camera and RC physics, and Demolition Man is a recipe for rage quitting, or at least ditching the main story and just messing around in Vice City's sandbox mode forevermore. Thankfully, though, the definitive edition of this game added 30 seconds to the timer. Hey, I thought we were done talking about my lovemaking activities. And also, when you failed the mission, you can instantly restart from that mission rather than have to go all the way back to the checkpoint. So yes, small blessings. Rest of the definitive edition, though.
Orbit synchronized.
Number 7, Captured.
Destiny 3? Are you insane? Why would you make that? The only possible reason you'd have to update so many things so
It's
far.
the internet, you're busy. Let's do this for April 12th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Greb. Today, Destiny's 10-year plan was all leading to this. That's right, Destiny 3. And Mike Yap Barra wants us to give more money so corporations can pay developers more. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host at Game Mess Mornings. It's Derek Van Dyke from the Super Deluxe Games podcast. Derek, how's it going?
Hi, it's going wonderful. How about yourself on this beautiful morning?
I'm doing good. I'm actually doing pretty good. It was a little bit rainy, but I like the rain, so I agree. Beautiful morning. Took the kids to school, came back. Getting Fallout 4 modded to hell, so Mike can play that later. That's what we're gonna do for our stream later today. I ended up paying like the premium price for Nexus mods, just so their Vortex app would work faster, because I was going through one by one and installing these mods. And at the end, I installed over 100 mods. So I'm like, the $5 definitely was worth it.
It ended up being worth it.
It ended easily worth it.
I could not imagine trying to burn through that many. Look, I love Nexus mods. I cannot imagine. I'm a one thing at a time kind of guy. So yeah, spend your $5.
Yes, yes, I'll be the one person paying for Nexus mods, exactly. So I got that ready to go. I think I got the game running. It did take, the initial load did take a really long time, so I'm like, oh boy, hope this doesn't break.
You never know. You put that much customization on a Bethesda game, and you're just kind of crossing your fingers and praying every time.
And we'll see what happens. Honestly, I mean, I installed all these mods. We probably won't interact with like 90% of them, but who knows? We'll see what happens. That's later today, though. But for now, like, Derek, how have you been doing? Like, how's gaming treating you? How's the podcast going? How's everything?
You know, everything's been great. Of course, like I'm still riding high from my return to PAX East, because I spent Yeah, 4 years not doing any of the in-person stuff and just running the podcast, everything remotely. So getting back into it, getting back to like doing interviews, doing the hustle, meeting up with people, meeting you in person for the first time instead of just over text or camera. Was lovely, and I'm still just riding high off that. Also, like, Dragon's Dogma 2 came out, and I'm your timeline's second biggest Dragon's Dogma sicko after WoW. So, I mean, I've been doing great.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that you're living in your time, and it's finally come. You deserved it. You earned it, for sure. It was great to meet you. It was great to I don't know, coming back to PAX East, it was really invigorating.
Everybody seemed to have had a lot of good energy coming back from that. So
it was helpful because the vibes online were and have been bad. It's been off. Clearly people are in their feelings about a number of things. I still think presidential elections get people up in their head in a lot of ways, and now it's just making everything worse. And so going online or going in real life to see a bunch of people who are like, oh, everyone's just really cool. Like everyone's like human beings where they actually want to talk about this stuff in person. It's because they actually care, and they're not just some weirdo trying to start a culture war. And so it was like a very helpful thing at the very right time for me. So it was fantastic. I had a good time.
It turns out when you
what? Where did he come from?
Not to get distracted that for some reason my camera keeps putting the frame around my face, which it has not.
Is that the
done
same
yet,
one I
so
just
I
didn't?
don't know
I just
why that's
assumed he
happening.
died.
I'm very
That's
sorry
probably
for those
what
watching.
happened.
I'm just gonna try not to get distracted by that.
I like it. It makes it feel like I'm playing the Derek Van Dyke video game.
It's just like smooches go here. But it turns out when you put people together, a lot of the like awkwardness, weird vibes melt away. It's a good reminder.
Yes, it's important, and then I come back home. I'm like, oh man, I love being at home and working remote, not having to deal with it constantly. But it's like every couple of months, getting together with people rules. So, and with that in mind, I'm like continually and now putting together Summer Game Fest, and that's gonna be great as well. But it's not that far away, so we're already getting back into it. You know what? I should explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help you piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on GiantBomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Destiny 2 leaker claims sequel is in development and it's codenamed Payback. This is from Moises Tavares, one of the nasty boys at Kotaku. Earlier this week, Bungie unveiled most of the major features included in Destiny 2's upcoming expansion, The Final Shape, including a new enemy faction, an exotic class item that allows players to mix and match game-changing perks, and most importantly, a chaotic new subclass called Prismatic that similarly combines previous light and dark subclasses. Goes on to talk about Destiny 2, but the bigger deal and what has currently set the Destiny 2 community alight is the second half of the user statement, where they state that Destiny 3 is in development and that the game will take Prismatic a step further, moving away from subclasses entirely. According to them, the leaker, Destiny 3, which is reportedly codenamed Payback, has been in the works at Bungie, though they aren't sure of its current status at the moment. Last they heard, it was doing away with subclasses entirely, which isn't a far-fetched theory considering the realities of Prismatic. Bungie likened it to an advanced subclass during its presentation. The ramifications of multi-classing and the build-craft options that Prismatic introduces almost feel like they have to be the foundation for a new in the future.
I keep dying.
The same work here for the Destiny heads and provides a lot of details, but let's kind of talk the high-level stuff first, Derek.
Yeah.
Like Destiny 2 is really finally actually at that endpoint for the 10-year plan for Destiny, which of course didn't go as planned. You only have a plan as long as you get punched in the face, right? And that definitely happened with Destiny early on, and they responded and they made a bunch of changes and they eventually did put out Destiny 2. The reality is I think that they are sort of winding down this idea of the original launch ideas for Destiny that did turn into Destiny 2, and it's been years and years of updates, and now I think they finally are at a point where it's like, Destiny 3 could and should happen. Now, that doesn't mean it's happening next year even. It's probably a ways away still. But would you be excited for Destiny 3, and what do you think it needs to be?
God, it's crazy, right? Because Destiny 2 feels so ever present. And the idea of trying to follow up any of the small handful of massive like online service games that dominate the industry feels terrifying, especially in the wake of like Overwatch 2 basically destroying Overwatch.
That works.
One thing that I do think helps is, at least for Destiny's player base, like, this is not the first time we've done this, right? We've moved from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2 already. The idea of throwing +1 onto that number is not unheard of. That plus the way that Destiny 2 has like gated off a lot of earlier like vanilla and earlier expansion like story content is kind of like, it doesn't feel like, it may not feel like, I should say, leaving behind the entirety of 10 years of Destiny, right? It kind of just feels like moving on to the next like foundation piece. So like, I'm not a Destiny sicko, but I do think that Destiny's player base is probably better primed to move on than would have been the case with something like Overwatch.
Yeah, I think it's obviously there's conflicting factors, right? Where it's like, hey, Destiny 2 has momentum, and like not like that momentum of like, oh, it's so successful you can't abandon it. Not like that. It's just like people know what to expect from Destiny 2. They can go in there with their friends, and it's a safe bet for how they spend their time. Asking people to like start from scratch again, or however that transition would work for a Destiny 3 is always risky, but I think they are probably like looking at the spreadsheets. They're looking at the calculus of, you know, that was true for a very long time. We did not want to disrupt that momentum and the sort of network effect that people had of, I'm playing the game, I'm getting my friends to play that game. Eventually that does diminish to a point where Destiny 3 makes a lot more sense. And I think they're trying to predict it and time it out so that Destiny 3 can come out in a world where it's like, well, obviously Destiny 2 has run its course. I think at any point from like this point forward, that's going to be like, oh yeah, Destiny 2 has run its course, so Destiny 3 makes a ton of sense. They've been hesitant about going to Destiny 3. I think because for them, it's like, if that is not worth it, they can get a lot more out of a game like Destiny 2 for a lot longer than you know, the way games used to work. So it's like, but I think we're at the point where they've done that multiple times now, and diminishing returns have set in on these expansions. But who knows, maybe the final shape comes out and Destiny 2 grows into like the biggest it's ever been. Something we have seen with other similar games, and then that pushes Destiny 3 even further out. But this is a team that has a Marathon also in the works.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Right. So it's like they have to, and Marathon does seem like it's also kind of a ways off, but it's also taking up a lot of their time. And I think that would come out first, and then they would do Destiny 3. So I'm like trying to figure out the timeline. We're 2024 right now. Marathon is what? Probably not 2025, so 2026, I guess. And then when the Destiny 3 come out. So it's like, okay, we're actually looking at several more years of Destiny 2 before we get there. But I think like laying the groundwork now makes some sense. Where it's like, okay, people can brace themselves and get a little bit more out of Destiny 2 in the meantime.
I think you have to. I think it is probably better, obviously, like, let this final expansion like run some of its course. I think the sooner that Bungie lays the groundwork, if Destiny 3 is the direction they're going for, if this is the time to move on to the next numbered entry and start people from scratch, the sooner they lay that groundwork like openly and transparently to people, the better, because obviously anytime you are going from one numbered piece of software to the next is the biggest point for people to either jump off or on the train.
Yes.
You know, and I can imagine, even if you're Destiny, right? Even if you're a game that defined this modern era of service games in so many ways, that's scary. That's intimidating to be looking down the barrel. So,
and I just wonder if they're like at a point where it's like, okay, yeah, we can see those numbers, and we do know that there's a chance. There's people who are waiting that we're never going to either get back or they're never going to try it because Destiny 2 is too intimidating at this point, or too much sunk cost in the opposite direction of like, I see this game, it's massive, it's complex, there's all of these ins and outs that people, and all these experiences that people have, and why would I jump in now when I can just jump in with the Destiny 3? That's obviously why it makes sense. I do wonder if, because it does still, like, all that said, Derek, it still somewhat feels like a Bungie reversal of their opinion on this matter, where it's like, hey, we do have Destiny 2. Destiny 2 could kind of be forever if we wanted it to. I wonder if there is any sort of pressure change from Sony leadership. We know that Bungie is supposed to be running independently, but we know there's been some questions about whether or not that's going to be possible with Bungie not being able to pay for itself. And so, Pete Parsons, the leadership over there, has made a bunch of cuts and things like that. And I wonder if they're like, hey, Destiny 3 is something we could like show to Sony and be like, no, we have a plan for the future. You don't need to come worry about us. Let us do this. I wonder if that is informing some of their decision-making process here. Not that it wouldn't if they were independent, right? They'd still have to make money in that case. So, but
like, there's no way it's not when it's Sony, right? Like, especially with, we know Sony has kind of like quietly, not even quietly, right? Like, because we've all heard about the struggles they've had to try to pivot into like a very service game dominated like direction, and how that hasn't mostly worked out for them. And Destiny is this like one very stable piece that both clearly defined that direction in terms of where they wanted to go, and also is the only, like, one of the rare examples of a game actually holding on, because games don't last. Service games don't last as long as Destiny has. It's really very much a rarity, and the idea of taking it much longer, I totally understand the idea of like, hey man, like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy 14 have made it way longer than this, so who's to say that Destiny 2 couldn't eventually hit those numbers? But like, man, the further into the outliers you're aiming, that's playing with fire. So
there is a service game that has lasted much longer than Final Fantasy 14 or World of Warcraft. And actually, I think it is longer than World of Warcraft, and it's called Roblox 2006. I think about it all the time. It's weird.
RuneScape sickos.
Also,
Let's
RuneScape
go.
sickos. Yes, honestly, all those games from that time are still going in one way or another. God, and in Final Fantasy 11 also has lasted longer. Sure, yes, that's just linear time though. Hey, I will check in on Destiny 3 when it comes out. I'm probably not going to play Destiny 2 again. I've just accepted that. I mean, I don't know, if my group of friends suddenly is playing Destiny 2 all the time and I have a lot more free time, that could happen, I suppose. But I just know myself. I'm like, once Destiny 3 is here, offers that fresh start, that's when I'll check back in on this series. And I think they're counting on that among a large audience to finally come back to that franchise.
Yeah.
All right, let's move along here.
While you say this, I'm gonna briefly turn my camera around and kill camera and try to kill camera square. I know Chad is in love with camera square right now, but it is so distracting
my favorite character, Giant Bomb. It's gonna get its own wiki entry. All right, I'll read this. You go and work on that.
Yeah,
absolutely. The second story here, Pac-Man Mega Tunnel Battle Chomp Champs, which is just poetry of a name, has been dated for console and PC. This is from Jordan Midler at VGC. It's an updated version of the 64-player Battle Royale game Pac-Man Mega Tunnel Battle, which launched in 2020 for Stadia but closed down last year alongside Google's game streaming service. The online-only game will be available on May 9th for PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. Here's a quote here from the game's description. Eat your way through multiple interconnected mazes using power pellets and various power items to chomp the ghosts and other packs. Be the last pack standing at the end of each 64-player match to be the Chomp Champ, reads the game's description. All right, I'm going to try to remember the name of this game. I just read it, Eric.
It's a lot of words.
Pac-Man.
Man, Mega Tunnel Battle Chomp Champs.
Yeah, Mega Tunnel Battle Derby. Mega Tunnel Battle Chomp Champs.
64.
Wow.
Turbo Edition.
That hell of a name. I did play this on Stadia when it was out on there. I guess this is an updated version of that. It's okay. I'm hoping it could do a lot better now that it's on other platforms, but I don't know. It doesn't have that like battle royale feel of even like a F-Zero 99 or even a Super Mario Brothers 35.
Yeah.
Like those ones, it's like, oh yeah, it felt like you're all competing. This is like you're in your own maze and then you go over the next maze. I mean, you do eat other Pac-Man, but it's not like crazy chaos or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I like Pac-Man a lot. I'm glad they're doing more stuff with this. And a vestige of Stadia lives on here. Any chance you check out a Pac-Man Battle Royale game?
Man, I don't know. So F-Zero 99 is the first time I got into one of these, like, hey, we took an old game and we let an absurd number of people play it simultaneously.
Yeah.
And it was way more engaging than I thought it would be. And it does make me wish I hadn't missed, like, Tetris 99, Mario 35, you know, that I'd had an opportunity to play, you know, the Pac-Man Megatunnel Battle, not Chomp Champ 64 Turbo Edition. I would check it out, right? I mean, I know a couple of sickos for these type of games. We took an old pixel game and let 100 people play it at once. None of them care about the Pac-Man one. But it feels sacrilegious not to try, right? It's Pac-Man, you know?
I also like whenever they do something new with Pac-Man and they put the new spin on it. Usually they have a good look, and I hope that this one is updated with a lot of just a visual flair. They're good at that, these Pac-Man games. And the one for Stadia again was just okay for those factors. It didn't like stack up the championship against the classic game at this point. But at the same time, I'm also just like, hey, you know, Bandai Namco always out there doing more stuff with Pac-Man at all times. They're not letting that franchise wilt in any way, and I appreciate that more than anything else.
Yeah, at least they're keeping him busy, you know.
They're giving the man work, which is
look, I love you, Capcom, but like Mega Man, what's up, right?
Exactly,
like,
yeah.
I think when you're that much of a grandpa of the industry, like you should be able to get regular work, even if it's a charity work, right?
Right. Yeah. Look, in your own game, like, yeah, it's awesome that like Mega Man was so busy in Smash Brothers and all that stuff. But like, let's get him his own game again. I mean, the Mega Man 11
Jesus
came out.
Christ.
That was probably a long time.
That's way too many years ago, but it's not as recent as you think.
It's not as recent as I think. Yeah.
But yeah, Pac-Man's staying busy. Old man still gets out of the house, still does the thing. I'm happy.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Maybe it's not for me, but it makes me happy to know it's happening.
All right. Let's see if you're moving along. Fallout 4 is finally getting new content and improvements on PS5, Xbox, and PC. This is from George Yang at GameSpot. Bethesda has revealed a bunch of new information regarding Fallout 4 and its long-awaited update for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. It was originally announced back in 2022, but it was delayed to this year. The update is free and will be released on April 25th. The update will include native versions for both of the newest consoles, as well as the choice to pick between performance and quality modes. Specifics for these weren't shared, but Bethesda did note you can experience up to 60 frames per second and increased resolution. Always where it's like up to, yeah, right? But my understanding is that actually they can have a solid 60 frames per second mode.
This is a 9-year-old game. Hopefully it can hit 60 frames per second. But
right, I'm like, oh my god, up to 60 frames per second. But no, apparently it's fine. It better run at that. You're correct. Those still playing on PS4 and Xbox One will receive a free update, and with stability improvements and quest fixes, the PC version will also add widescreen and ultra-wide support, along with fixes to the creation kit and update quest updates. The game is already on Steam, Microsoft Store, and GOG, but will also now be available to purchase on Epic Game Store. It will also become Steam Deck verified, which I'm always happy to hear about. Yeah, this is cool. I mean, we get why they do this, right? Though, I mean, the update was always planned. Sure, it took a long time, but the timing of it isn't a coincidence that it's out now when the show is out. They know, they've seen the numbers a bunch of times for these shows that do pop off in a big way based on video games, do lead people back to the game, and that means Fallout 4 is going to be the one that is the most likely to benefit from that. So having this update ready to go is great. I bet they wish they had a newer Fallout, not 76, ready to go. They'd probably really benefit in that case. But 4 is not like some game that people are going to go back to like, oh, I'm like, I can't play this. This is so old. It's part of that generation of games where it's like, yeah, this could kind of come out today. Obviously, we need some updates here and there, but that's kind of what this is.
They're doing. Exactly. And it's clear they've been confident about this Fallout show for a while, right?
Yes.
So, like, it makes sense that they were like, okay, let's start planning out if the show's going to come out and it's going to potentially draw people back into the franchise. You know, yeah, get a little story content update to a 9-year-old game. Let's throw, you know, some Creation Club content in there and give it a little spit polish shine. You know, granted, half my timeline seems to be going back to New Vegas, not 4. But I mean, that's the first off, like, you know, queer people love New Vegas. I don't know how to explain that.
I've heard that
and
before,
and that's 80% of my community. So, you know, but yeah, I mean, of course, like I think most normal people are going to look at 4. So they're going to see 76 as sort of a weird semi-online service game. And read some old headlines about it, and just go, let me just go back to the last numbered one.
Yeah, I think they'll look. You're exactly right. I think the 76 will get some shine there for sure. But people be like, no, I mean the game I could play single player. I want the story.
Yeah,
and that'll lead them to 4. Absolutely. But I mean, New Vegas is also going to pop off in a big way because of this. I expect more people to be playing New Vegas in the next couple of weeks than have played it in the last year or so.
Yeah.
And that'll be fantastic.
They will sell 3 more copies of New Vegas.
Yes. Everyone already owns that, right? It's like it's been at every Steam sale. Like people bought that 5 times over now. Boy, do they actually find a way to get a new Fallout game out relatively quickly from now? Because I don't see how they can. They are so far away